My name is Hazel. I'm 28 years old and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. 3 years ago, I met Ethan at an alumni fundraiser. He was charming in a quiet, confident way, polite without trying too hard, and 4 years older than me. He carried himself like someone who had already figured life out, like stability was woven into his bones. To everyone around us, we became the picture-perfect couple almost overnight. Ethan worked as a financial manager at a major investment firm, while I was the communications director for a small nonprofit, passionate about my work even if it didn't come with status or wealth. Ethan proposed on a warm June afternoon during a peaceful walk along the Ashley River. The ring wasn't massive or flashy, but the way he looked at me made the rest of the world disappear. In that moment, I felt chosen. I imagined a simple life together, a small house with a white porch, evenings lit by candles and quiet conversations, a future built slowly and honestly, hand in hand. Everything felt perfect. Everything except Ethan's family. From the very first time I met his mother, Vivian, I felt the weight of her judgment settle on me. Her smile was flawless, polite, practiced, but it never reached her eyes. "What do you do, Hazel?" she asked in a syrupy voice that sounded sweet on the surface but carried sharp edges underneath. When I told her I worked for a nonprofit, she raised one eyebrow ever so slightly and said nothing more, as if I had just confirmed her worst assumptions. Ethan's father, Douglas, didn't bother with subtlety. He spoke endlessly about golf memberships, seven-figure deals, and powerful connections, always finishing his stories with a dismissive smirk aimed in my direction, like I was someone who had wandered into the wrong room. Ethan always noticed. He would squeeze my hand under the table and whisper reassurances later, promising that his parents would eventually warm up to me, that love would outweigh their opinions. And I believed him. I told myself that if I stayed patient, if I stayed kind, if I proved myself quietly, Vivian and Douglas would one day accept me. That belief carried me through a year-long engagement filled with dinners and holidays where I endured carefully worded insults disguised as concern. Once, Vivian asked at a crowded family dinner, "Hazel, if Ethan ever lost his job, would you even be able to support him?" She said it calmly, sipping her wine like it was an innocent question. Another time, Douglas remarked during a pre-Christmas gathering that anyone could dress well and pretend to be successful, but that background was what truly mattered. His eyes met mine as if daring me to challenge him. Ethan never defended me. He always said he didn't want to make things worse, that confronting his parents would only create tension. I cried quietly after those dinners, convincing myself things would improve once we were married, once time passed, once I officially became family. That blind hope stayed with me until we were just 3 weeks away from the wedding. The venue was booked, a lavender-covered farm just outside the city. My dress was finished, the invitations were already sent, and the cake carefully chosen. Every night, I imagined walking down the aisle toward Ethan, believing love would finally silence the judgment, but those cold smiles and dismissive glances never truly disappeared. They waited beneath the surface, patient, ready to destroy everything. On a sweltering Thursday afternoon, exactly 7 days before the wedding, Ethan called me. His voice sounded rushed, oddly energized. "Babe, my parents planned a weekend trip to Naples, Florida, just a short getaway before the wedding. We'll be back Sunday." I hesitated. Naples, now, when we were buried under last-minute planning? But Ethan had already decided. I could hear it in his tone. "It's only 3 days," he said lightly. "I'll call every night." I agreed, though a knot tightened in my chest. After the call, I stood alone in the quiet kitchen, an uneasy feeling creeping over me. The next morning, Ethan wheeled his suitcase out the door without lingering. Barely a hug, just a quick kiss and a promise to text once he landed. I sat by the window afterward, crutching a cold cup of coffee, feeling like something invisible was slowly closing around my heart. Saturday evening, I received a call from Saudi, my best friend who worked as a manager at a luxury resort in Naples. Her voice was low and cautious. "Hazel, is Ethan supposed to be in Naples with his family?" I sat up straight. "Yes? Why?" She paused before answering, and when she spoke, my blood turned cold. I just saw him at the hotel restaurant with his parents and a woman I don't recognize. She described her as young, blonde, wearing a tight red dress. Worse, she said Vivian and Douglas were introducing her like she already belonged. Ethan and the woman were laughing, sitting far too close, while his parents watched with approval. I don't remember ending the call. I only remember sitting frozen on the floor, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I didn't waste time falling apart. Sunday morning, I hired a private investigator in Naples, a man named Marcus, known for working quickly and quietly. I told him to follow Ethan and his family until they left. Money was irrelevant. I needed the truth. For the next 24 hours, I barely moved. By Sunday evening, Marcus sent the photos. Each image confirmed what my heart already knew. Ethan smiling as the woman wrapped her arms around him, Vivian nearby looking pleased, Douglas raising a glass like he had just won something. Her name was Lily, a high-end sales associate from Miami. This wasn't an accident, it was planned. When Ethan came home that night, I was waiting. He avoided my eyes, shoulders tense. I asked calmly if he had a good trip. The silence stretched until he finally said he thought we should postpone the wedding. I slid the folder across the table. "Perfect," I replied quietly, "because I just learned a lot about your weekend." As he flipped through the photos, his face drained of color. Before he could speak, Saudi called again, telling me Lily had been bragging at a bar that Vivian and Douglas promised to handle everything if she could make Ethan hesitate. That was when the truth became undeniable. Vivian and Douglas walked in shortly after, unbothered, unapologetic. Vivian dismissed everything as harmless. Douglas didn't even look up from his phone. When I asked Ethan if he thought I wasn't good enough, he stayed silent, and that silence told me everything. I ended the wedding on the spot and walked out without looking back, leaving them behind in the mess they created. The next morning, I sent an invitation to Ethan, Vivian, Douglas, and Lily, requesting their presence at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Charleston. I booked a private meeting room, and before the wedding, I asked the staff to set up a big screen, speakers, and a projector. I signed the invite to clarify matters before the wedding. No one knew this wouldn't be a reconciliation. This was going to be a trial, and they would incriminate themselves. At exactly 10 a.m., I walked into the room in a simple cream-colored dress, hair neatly tied up. I wanted them to see I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined. I was standing tall, stronger than ever. Ethan was already there, looking miserable in a wrinkled suit. Vivian sat with her arms crossed, face carved from stone. Douglas, as always, stared at his phone. Lily, in contrast, wore a tight dress and heavy makeup like she was in a beauty pageant. I sat across from them, plugged in the USB, and started the presentation. Each photo, each video on the screen tore through the web of lies they had built. Ethan turned red. Vivian bit her lips so hard I thought she might bleed.
Douglas finally looked up, his face heavy and tired. Then came the audio, Vivian's voice unmistakable. "As long as Lily makes Ethan question things, Hazel will be nothing but a footnote." Silence swallowed the room. I stood up, voice steady. "So, who wants to explain first?" No one answered. I looked straight at Ethan. "You said you wanted to postpone the wedding. I'm helping you make that decision quicker." He opened his mouth to speak, but Vivian cut in. "Hazel, don't turn this into a disaster. This was all for Ethan's future." I laughed. The sound echoed off the walls. "For his future or for your family's reputation?" I asked sharply, because clearly no one thought about my feelings while you paraded some stranger into my life a week before the wedding. Lily shifted in her seat, lips tightly pressed. I stepped forward, voice firm. "And if you think this will stay hidden, you're wrong. Every bill, every video, every piece of evidence, it's stored in multiple places. One phone call and it'll land on Douglas's business partners' desks, Vivian's golf club circles, and across social media." Douglas paled. Vivian gripped the chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan remained silent, silent like a true accomplice. I gathered the file back together, slowly stacking the pages. "I'm canceling the wedding," I announced. "I'm erasing every trace of you from my life, and I hope that every morning when you look in the mirror, you remember today, the day you lost someone who truly loved Ethan." Without waiting for a reply, I turned and walked out of that suffocating room filled with shame and regret. I left the Ritz-Carlton, heels hitting the Charleston pavement like the steady beat of a freed heart. But deep inside, I knew this story wasn't over yet. That night, while packing away the final memories of our 3-year relationship, my phone rang again. It was Sadie. "You need to hear this," she said without hesitation. "Someone at the resort just told me. Lily's been bragging non-stop. Not only did Vivian and Douglas fund her trip, but they gave her lavish gifts to persuade Ethan." I clenched the phone. "Though they paid her?" "Not just cash," Sadie replied. "Jewelry, shopping cards, and according to Lily, even a job offer if she could seal the deal." I froze in the middle of the empty room, a cold shiver running down my spine. They didn't just try to replace me, they tried to buy Ethan's future, building a fake stage with Lily cast as the lead. Sadie hesitated, then added, "You should also know, Vivian told a few close friends that she never considered you worthy of their family. To her, you were just a temporary compromise." I closed my eyes, letting those words sink in like bitter medicine. All those times I'd tried to be patient, to prove I was good enough, to believe that kindness would soften their hearts, it had all been a delusion. When I opened my eyes, the fire in me was no longer pain, it was resolve. "Sadie," I said, my voice calm, "I'm not letting them walk away like nothing happened." I picked up my laptop and opened Marcus's files again. Besides the photos and receipts, there was that audio clip, Lily boasting about the bride swap plan. Vivian's voice echoed loud and clear in the recording. "As long as Lily knows how to sway Ethan, we'll handle the rest. Hazel's not the one for him." Every word, every sentence carved into the humiliation I had swallowed for 3 long years. But now they were my proof. I sat up straight and composed a new email. Recipients, Sadie, Marcus, and a few close friends who had witnessed my journey with Ethan from the start. I attached everything, adding one cold note. "In case of emergency, make sure the truth is seen." I no longer hoped for an apology from Vivian or Douglas. I no longer waited for Ethan to come to his senses. They chose their path, and now I'm choosing to let them face the consequences. By the next morning, the news began to leak. It started as whispers among friends, but within hours it spread. The prestigious Douglas family tried to swap brides a week before the wedding by hiring a third party. Several of Douglas's business partners canceled meetings. Rumors buzzed at the golf club. A former charity friend of Vivian even posted a thinly veiled jab online. I used to think bride swapping was just a soap opera thing. I sat in my usual cafe, sipping a latte, calmly reading the flood of messages, not because I wanted to watch them fall, but because this was justice, the kind they once thought they were too rich to ever face. As of Wednesday around noon, Sadie sent me a short text. Lily just deleted all her social media. Word is, she's furious that Vivian kept her off after the truth got out. I smiled faintly. Lesson 1 in Vivian's world: loyalty has a price, but it's worth nothing when scandal hit. As dusk fell over Charleston, I walked along the riverbank, feeling weightless. I no longer needed to twist myself just to be accepted. I didn't have to shrink who I was to hold on to a love that never deserved me. 3 days after the scandal exploded, I decided to take one final step: an emergency meeting at the wedding venue. The place that was once meant to mark the most sacred moment of my life would now be the stage where I exposed every lie. I sent invitations to Ethan, Vivian, Douglas, and Lily. The message was brief: urgent meeting to finalize event planning. I wanted them to think I was still hesitating, still holding on to some desperate hope. They all showed up. Vivian in a beige Chanel dress, her eyes betraying irritation. Douglas brought his laptop, probably still clinging to the idea of going over the prestigious guest list. Ethan looked worn out, the dark circles under his eyes proof of sleepless nights, and Lily, she arrived like the star of the show, in a short dress, bold red lipstick, and a smug glint in her eyes. I stood before them, a large screen behind me in the hall. Without a word, I started the slideshow I had carefully prepared. First image, Ethan and Lily cozy by the pool. Second, Vivian handing a gift box to Lily outside the hotel room. Third, a $1,000 receipt for silver jewelry from the boutique at the resort. Fourth, an audio recording of Vivian promising to take care of everything if Lily could make Ethan change his mind. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the projector. When the audio clip ended, I turned to face them. "I think," I said, voice calm but sharp as steel, "someone should start explaining." Vivian forced a nervous chuckle. "Hazel, don't be dramatic. It was just a few little arrangements. We can still talk this through." Douglas frowned, face flushed, but said nothing. Lily, surprisingly, only shrugged, her lips curled in defiance, and Ethan, the man I once believed would hold my hand for life, just sat there, eyes down, silent like a shadow. I took slow, steady steps towards him, my eyes locked on his face. "Do you have anything to say to me?" Ethan looked up. His eyes were so hollow it made my skin crawl. "I think," he croaked, voice broken, "we should go our separate ways." No apology, no explanation, just a cold farewell in the middle of the mess he helped create. I gave a faint smile, feeling strangely lighter. "Good," I said, my voice echoing through the empty hall. Vivian jumped to her feet, her face turning red. "Hazel, you'll regret this. Not everyone gets the chance to join a family like ours." I looked at her, a bitter smile playing on my lips. "I'd rather start over with nothing," I replied, "than live a lifetime under your control and lies."
Douglas quickly tugged her back into her seat, whispering something into her ear, likely advising her to stop before it got worse. I packed up my laptop, adjusted my dress, and walked out of the hall with my head held high. Behind me, the murmurs started, whispering, bickering, confusion spreading like a slow-burning fire. But I didn't look back. I walked past rows of empty chairs, past white tablecloths still waiting to be pressed. Every step I took marked the ground that should have witnessed the happiest day of my life. The scandal spread faster than I expected. Within a week, what started as hushed gossip over afternoon tea became full-blown news across Charleston. The Douglas family tried to sabotage a wedding by hiring a replacement bride. Every detail fell into place. Vivian searching for a better candidate, Douglas funding it behind the scenes, Lily receiving lavish gifts to wedge herself into my 3-year relationship with Ethan. Online forums tore into the story like wolves at a feast. The social circles Vivian once proudly led, from her golf club charity groups to elite parent associations, began quietly removing her from membership rosters. Messages saying, "We need to pause our collaboration," rained down like a summer storm. Douglas didn't fare much better. Some of his investors discreetly pulled out, citing a need to reevaluate the company's ethical standards. An internal board meeting was postponed indefinitely. I listened to all of it in silence, not with glee, not with regret, just with a quiet sense that justice was finally working the way it should. As for Lily, the woman who thought sneaking into the Douglas family would transform her life, she quickly realized sandcastles don't survive real waves. After this scandal broke, Ethan clung to her like a drowning man to driftwood. They were spotted having dinner at a few local restaurants, trying to pose as a couple who weathered the storm. But Lily was never the type to suffer for love. Once she realized there'd be no lavish wedding, no massive inheritance, no $1 million mansion, she began distancing herself. On a Saturday night, Lily posted a new photo on Instagram, arm in arm with another wealthy, older man, captioned sweetly, better choices come when you realize you deserve more. 3 days later, she cut off all contact with Ethan. No texts, no goodbye, not a shred of guilt. Nathan, once proud and untouchable, now spiraled in despair. Sadie told me she spotted him alone at our old bar, staring blankly ahead, a full beer untouched before him. Maybe Ethan thought he was playing a dangerous game, that he'd explore other options and come back to me once the dust settled. What he didn't realize was that that game destroyed everything, not just our love, but the last bit of respect I had for him. Vivian's true nature became clearer than ever. She hosted a few small parties, desperate to repair her social image, but few people stayed. Polite greetings followed by quick excuses to leave. Event invites stopped coming, replaced by conflicting schedules and family priorities. Beos faded into silence. A rebirth celebration. Rightfully so. His business reputation was the most valuable thing he ever had, and now it was crumbling in plain view. I lived in peace while they weathered the storm they created. Every morning I woke up in my sun-filled apartment, brewed a rich cup of coffee, and smiled at where I stood, not as a bride left behind, but as a woman who chose herself. 1 month after I walked away from the altar that never got built, Sadie and I threw a small party, jokingly calling it a rebirth celebration. Close friends came. We laughed, celebrated, danced under warm yellow lights. I wore the simple white dress I originally picked for my engagement party, but this time I wore it for me. No license, no vows, just real freedom. That afternoon, as golden sunlight bathed the historic streets of Charleston, I stood in front of a tall mirror in Sadie's living room, gently adjusting the ivory silk dress I wore. Not a wedding dress, not a glamorous gown, just a light flowing dress, free, effortless, and a perfect fit for the new life I was stepping into. Sadie walked in holding a small flower crown and beamed. There she is, the queen of tonight's party. I burst into laughter, the kind that finally carried no bitterness, no weight, no Ethan, no Vivian, no judgmental stares or passive-aggressive comments. Just me, surrounded by people who truly loved me for who I was. The non-wedding party was held in Sadie's backyard, which she had decorated with warm string lights, white ribbons fluttering in the breeze, and lavender blooms placed all around. The guests were only my closest friends, the ones who had seen me through both my brightest and darkest days. Everyone dressed simply but radiantly. There was no pressure, no pretense, just genuine laughter and tight, meaningful hugs. Sadie popped open a bottle of champagne and poured the first round. Raising her glass, eyes twinkling under the lights, she said, "We're celebrating a woman who chose herself." Everyone cheered, and for the first time in months, my heart felt weightless. We ate pizza instead of a fancy buffet. Instead of premium red wine, we clinked glasses of juice and soda. The 3-tier wedding cake that was meant for the big day, Sadie had replaced it with a small, simple cake piped with one sweet message: "Welcome back, Hazel." I couldn't hold back the tears, but this time they were tears of pure happiness. That night, with music playing and laughter filling the air, I danced with my friends under a sky full of stars. No heels, no heavy dress, no pressure to appear perfect in anyone's eyes. I danced with my whole heart, messy, clumsy, but absolutely free. Near midnight, Sadie pulled me from the dance floor and handed me a small silver-wrapped box. "Gift for you," she whispered. I opened it. Inside was a simple bracelet engraved with 3 words, "End your story." I clutched it in my hand, feeling the sweet weight of those words. No one has the right to write my story but me, not a family, not a man, not a false promise. I smiled at my reflection in the window glass. The life I once feared would crumble without Ethan was in fact just beginning a new chapter, the most beautiful one yet, where I was finally holding the pen.
As the party ended and friends began to leave, I stood alone in the quiet backyard looking up at the sky. A shooting star streaked across the night, quick as a blink. I closed my eyes and whispered a simple wish. May I always remember that freedom is not the absence of pain, but the choice to move forward even when the heart has been torn. I opened my eyes, smiling softly, and took my first steps into a future that didn't need a lavish wedding or a grand venue, only a heart brave enough to love life with unshaken faith. That day, I thought I had lost everything: a 3-year love, a dream wedding, a family I fought to build. But in truth, I had been saved, rescued from a future full of deceit and manipulation. Now I live my own life, free, strong, and no longer bending to please anyone. I've learned that sometimes loss isn't the end, it's the door to something better, a journey where every step belongs to me. What do you think of Hazel's journey? Have you ever had to choose between love and self-respect like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful family stories ahead.